Some heroes must give it their all, while others are so powerful they actually need to hold back. You've probably heard of Omega level, but did you know that there is a tier even beyond that? Gambit doesn't often get as much love in the comics when it comes to what he is capable of, but he is actually capable of quite a lot. A lot of people don't think of him as being super powerful, and the reality is, it's because he's actually actively holding back pretty much all of the time. Gambit actually reached out to Mr. Sinister about helping him nerf his powers because then they would be more easy to control, which is something that he was worried about, so he has been holding back for a long time in the comics because of this. Gambit also learns of his alternate self, New Sun, and is basically warned of what would happen if he tapped into his full potential. Spoiler, it ain't good. New Sun hails from a world that was destroyed because of how powerful he was. Vulcan is pretty insanely powerful and in a dangerous way too, because he's so capable of evil due to being manipulated during his time in the Vault. In fact, in Empire we saw what was probably only a small fraction of what his darker side was capable of when he ran into the Kotati while out for a walk on the blue area of the moon, where the Summers house was located during the Krakoan era. He attempted to deal with the situation peacefully when he approached them, initially anyways, showing mercy, but when provoked, his darker side was unleashed, causing him to kill everyone save one member of the Kotati, who was basically left traumatized, uncontrollably uttering the word Krakoa on repeat. Holding back is a huge part of who this character is, or who this character has been for a long time. We're talking about Gentle. Now I love Gentle and I think that he deserves more love in the comics, which is why I am super happy to be featuring him on this list, although at least he's gotten more to do recently with him appearing alongside T'Challa in the Black Panther series, where he was revealed to actually have been working undercover for a long time with the King and for Wakanda. That's a whole thing. I'm not super well versed in it because I need to go and read that Black Panther series, but honestly, a lot of it seemed pretty cool. Gentle has vibranium tattoos which actively help him to control and at times restrain his super strength and super muscly powers. Also, they look really cool. It's unknown just how powerful Gentle could be, though it is believed the level of strength he is capable of could be in fact limitless, and that he could even hold his own against the likes of the Hulk. Gentle initially held back on using his powers because of trauma, which manifested in the form of a fear of his powers and physical pain whenever he used them. However, it was later revealed by Jean Grey that this weakness was actually a psychological barrier in his mind as opposed to being legitimately tied to his mutant powers themselves. She helped him to emotionally heal and recover from this, removing this weakness from him. Still though, he probably holds back a lot because he is really strong. I mean, what can I say about Hope that you don't already know? Hope Summers is definitely one of the most powerful mutants around in the comics, and the X-Men were fortunate for a time to have her on the roster. Hope's powers allow her to take at peak mastery the powers of any mutants that are within her vicinity. She is only limited by a certain range in terms of her ability to adopt one's powers. She doesn't drain the powers of her target, and she is instantly able to master any ability, any power set that she takes on. Honestly, it's pretty wild. She's also literally mutant Jesus, being the baby everyone fought over in X-Men Second Coming. Hope isn't a Summers by birth, but she was adopted by the biological son of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, and the adopted son of Jean Grey, Cable, aka Nathan Summers. Storm is a literal goddess in the comics. There are many times when, like her friend Rogue, if she simply chose to just not hold back, she could just do some serious damage to her enemies. However, Storm is a hero and as such often prefers to maintain a sense of restraint and spare her enemies from a fatal demise when she can. Storm not only holds back when it comes to her powers, but also when it comes to her fighting prowess as well, as she is also an extremely skilled physical combatant. Rogue has since come much more into her own in the comics, with her gaining more control over her powers, meaning that she is no longer as burdened with having to worry about hurting those she cares for by accident. Rogue's powers allow her to absorb the powers and even memories of others through touch. She can take on multiple powers at once, but the setback is that her touch can also drain the life force of energy of whoever she makes contact with. Now it turns out that the loss of control of her powers came from a very real place for most of us, her own fear of being close to people, of intimacy, and of acceptance. For Rogue, she just had to make the choice to just accept herself and not be afraid, and it was through that basically therapeutic work that she was then able to take control of her abilities fully. So if you've seen her making out with Gambit a ton in the comics, that's why, and that's how she's able to do that. And if you see Rogue coming your way, you do not have to be afraid, unless of course you are one of the baddies, and then you should be very afraid. Yep. Rachel Summers is definitely one of the most powerful mutants and X-Men members that we have. She is the alternate reality daughter of Cyclops and Jean Grey, who of course are known to make powerful children together across the multiverse. Hence also why Sinister is so obsessed with the two of them getting together. Rachel is one of the chosen hosts of the Phoenix Force, and even without the Phoenix is extremely powerful, being an immensely powerful telepath, telekinetic, and chronokinetic. She can read time, skip through it, travel to alternate timelines and dimensions, and even manipulate time. Yeah, she's pretty powerful. She also happens to be immune to timeline alterations as well, and is unique in that she is the only version of herself throughout the entire multiverse. Even another Rachel Summers is not technically considered an alternate of Rachel as such. Even if she had the same name, kind of the same vibe, Rachel is 100% her own. She has no other versions of herself, which also makes her uniquely well suited to time travel. Less paradoxes, you know what I mean? Did you know that SpiderMan was an X-Man? Yeah, he was. Even though he's not really a mutant, but a mutate. Kinda makes you feel bad for Deadpool, doesn't it? Who always wants to join in on all this mutant fun and games, but is so often shafted by them because, well, he's Wade, and he's pretty annoying. Sorry, Wade. Spider-Man ended up joining the X-Men in the wake of Wolverine's death, as Storm had found papers regarding an idea to have him join the team and teach his own special class of mutants. As such, he joins the X-Men in Spider-Man and the X-Men issue number 1. There are multiple times in the comics where Peter has actively been shown to pull his punches for fear of doing some serious damage to his foes. If Spider-Man weren't holding back, he could likely kill some of the people he comes up against with one well-placed punch, and there are many stories that have kind of talked about that. Well, we never really get to know Miranda's codename, or even, honestly, her full name. We just know her as Miranda. She was given her very own mutant class. That is how great her powers are considered to be. Beast had to create a whole new classification of power levels just for her. She only appears in the Worst X-Men Ever limited series, which by the way is a really great read that I would recommend you check out if you haven't already. Miranda here is shown to have reality warping powers, but ones that don't adversely affect space, time, or the multiverse. Anything in her reality or the fabric of the continuum, which is pretty insane, because every other reality warper has some of that to some extent, pretty much. Beast decided to give her the new classification, which would sit above Omega with the name of Omicron, just because he thought that was one of the most ominous sounding letters of the Greek alphabet. I think my favorite thing is that although in this universe Miranda was beyond Omega level and could have fixed the world in a snap, she understood why the balance of everything had to be maintained, and so instead she chose to hold back instead of just simply using her powers to completely change the world for better, or, you know, perhaps accidentally for worse, as so many reality warpers sometimes do. Nate Grey has to be one of the most powerful mutants that I know, and is likely also one of the most powerful mutants to have ever existed. He is believed to be the perfect genetic offspring of Jean Grey and Scott Summers. Yeah, another Jean Grey Scott baby. Hailing from the Age of Apocalypse reality where he was genetically engineered by his world Sinister. You know Sinister, in any universe he's pretty much obsessed with creating the perfect mutant, which in this case is believed to be X-Man. Nate would be raised not by his genetic parents, but by the AOA version of Forge, who is basically his adoptive father here. Nate has both fought on the side of his own reality's X-Men, but while he's also capable of traveling to other dimensions and realities in addition to manipulating time as well, Nate has also fought alongside the X-Men of Earth 616 too, even joining the team in 1999 in Astonishing X-Men issue number 1. That's about it. I'm your host Amanda McKnight, and until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube. Bye!